Now, Erie's premier podcast. News about music, health, and what's happening. It's Breakfast with Nat the Hat in the 814, sponsored by Erie Insurance.
Well, this morning, I want to talk about something that touches the hearts of many. It is the incredible power of animal rescue and the profound impact that therapy animals have on our lives. These are two interconnected areas where compassion, hope, and healing meet in the most beautiful ways. Breakfast with Nat the Hat in the 814 welcomes two pioneers in animal rescue and therapy. Executive Director, is that what I call you, Ruth? What do you call yourself these days?
Just the girl that works there. I don't really have a title. I don't like that. Yeah, but thank you.
Doesn't have a title. That is Ruth Thompson, and from the Anna Shelter, Patty Christensen. Patty, are you the Executive Director?
I am.
You are at Therapy Dogs United. So podcast 44 is the heart of animal lovers in the 814. I'm going to start with you, Patty. Tell our listeners about yourself. You are a native to the 814.
I am a native to the 814, correct. Born and raised in Waterford, but live in the city of Erie now. Founded Therapy Dogs United back in 2008, just for that reason, just for a love of animals and trying to look for something different to do with animals. And back when I founded the charity, even though I know you asked me about, where I'm from and everything, but back when I founded it, therapy dogs weren't that common of a thing as it is today. It wasn't that much of a catchphrase and people didn't know as much about it. So grew up in Waterford, was actually attacked by a dog as a child. So I thank my parents for introducing me back to dogs and making sure that I wasn't afraid, because so many of the kids that we visit have had a bad experience with dogs like I did, and we have to work to break that barrier with them. So my parents did a good job with that. So founded a charity, even though I have 63 stitches on my face from being attacked.
Well, I can't tell.
Well,
I don't know.
Actually, it was my ear, and this is funny. I always joke about it, but my glasses are on a little bit crooked because they had to reattach my ear, and so I have a little bit of damage with it. But it was so long ago. I
how
barely remember.
Old are you? Wow, were you?
Yeah,
at that
I
time?
was 7.
Wow.
Yeah. My hair was long and it was like blowing in the wind, and the dog was like trying to snap at my hair from what my parents tell me, and just bit me, and then I'm sure I screamed, and then it just turned into more,
Wow.
And now you're doing the whole Therapy Dogs United.
Yeah, and the dog girl. Well, you're the dog lady, Ruth, and I'm
That's,
the
Yes.
other dog
yeah,
lady.
that's an amazing story.
Ruth, go back. Do you have an amazing story of why you love animals so much?
Not that. I mean, not just she overcame a huge fear. I have a lot of respect for that. That's a big deal.
Yes.
I got kicked in the face by my horse when I was 21. That's amazing.
So, Ruth, you've been around animals your whole life
I
then,
have,
too.
yeah. Same, yeah. I grew up here in Erie, and I attribute to my parents. My dad was a huge animal lover. My mom, not so much, even to this day. She doesn't have any pets. She's 90, so I think that, but even growing up, she just was not the animal lover. My dad definitely was. But I think Patty can relate. I mean, it's just who I am, so it doesn't feel like a job. It doesn't feel hard. It's just, I wake up every day loving what I do because I think it's who I am. So it's easy and difficult all at the same time. But.
Gotcha. Patty, what inspired the creation?
Well,
I mean, what brought you to this 501(c)(3)?
Yeah, so I used to work in television, and we used to.
Patty. Now that I think back.
Yeah.
What station were you on?
I was on Channel 35. So 100 years ago, I always say
Oh my
that,
gosh, don't say 100 years because it
100 years
wasn't.
ago. But, when you were an anchor on television, you had to be attached to a charity. And I was assigned to work with a charity that I really had no strong connection to. And I always thought, oh, great, wouldn't it be great if I could get on like the Anna Shelter's board or somebody's board, and do something, because I really am passionate about dogs and animals. And there just was no opening at that time. So I was put on a board for a charity that was great charity. It just, for me, it didn't resonate. And as my contract was coming up, back in 2007, I thought, boy, I want to do something with animals, but what? I'm not going to create another shelter. There's so many of them, so many great ones that are working, probably far fewer back then than there are today, for sure. But I had my dog at a dog training school, and he said, what do you want to do with your dog? I said, what do you mean? And he said, they have to have a job. And I said, okay. And he said, your dog could be a therapy dog. I'm like, what is this? Again, 2008, it was so long ago. So he told me a little bit about it. And there was only one like therapy dog organization nationwide. It was called the Delta Society back then. And my option was to start something new, grassroots, found it myself, do what I thought we could do or be part of them. And I went the road of, leaving television and starting that. Fortunately, I had a strong background where I could still call up the TV station for those moments to say, here's a great media event, so we got a lot of traction early on just because I had the connections in television. And so they picked up a lot of stuff. I would say this is a media moment in happening, like dogs, puppies, seniors, all that kind of stuff. So we grew very quickly, but as fast as we grew, we only became nationwide in 2021. So as fast as we grew here in Erie, we're now nationwide and in Canada, but it took me that long to get where I felt that we could start growing, and we found a way to grow nationwide.
Wow, Patty, so it is nationwide.
We are well, we say international now, Nat, because
Because
Canada.
Yeah,
we got to
that's
say
legit.
it.
Yeah,
we're
you
in the
can say
Yukon
it.
territory. We could not be further away. We're way up by Alaska. I don't even know
awesome.
how we ship our stuff to them. No, it takes months to get there, but yeah.
That is such a great story. Ruth, how about the
I just
history?
want to hear the rest of her story. Like, this is so cool. I had no idea. And I refer people all the time because people will come in and say, I want an emotional support dog. I want a therapy dog. And I'm like, hey, there's this great organization in Erie.
Thanks.
Give them a call. Yeah. I didn't know any of that. So that's super cool.
And we
Like-
love
like
nothing more
hearing
than our
that.
rescue stories, because whenever we go make a visit, somebody will say, where'd you get your dog? Is it a rescue? Like every dog in their brain was a rescue. So we love the rescue stories, how we had the second chance and how we got them and that they now work in the community and do so good, or, this dog was abused and we have no idea its background, but, now it's out there making such a difference in people's lives.
So, Ruth, now your turn.
Okay.
When did you start the organization, the Anna Shelter?
Well, my dad was a city politician. He's deceased now, but he was in politics my whole life. And so city was going through some controversy with the other organization that they had contracted with. And I was listening to my dad complain about it. And that was years and years before I started the shelter. And I remember thinking like, man, I could do this. Like I could have a shelter. And it wasn't until maybe 10 years later, I was 29, and my dad said, well, if you think you can do a better job, just do it yourself, kind of flippantly. And I kind of took that as a challenge. And I thought, all right, never imagining, I'm sure with you, didn't imagine you were going to be international. Thank God I'm not, because I could not handle that, girl. So much respect for that. And I just wanted something little, and I really started with the idea of helping the city because, again, like you, born and raised here, came from a very philanthropic family. And I thought, well, gosh, if I can help the city, if I can help the stray animals, I'll do that. Again, never imagining it getting as big as it has or having the impact that it has, not just on me, but on everybody. And then it just spiraled, out of control, I guess. And again, like you had said, Patty, that when I started it, there wasn't really anybody else in town. There was just one or two other smaller or shelters here in Erie. And thank God I look at now all the places that have started the little spinoffs, whether they just do cats or they're just online or whatever, or they're just pulling from kill shelters. So I'm thankful. And I don't know that maybe the Anna Shelter inspired some of those people to do it and maybe do it better. Who knows? But
Ruth, I recall as a child the roaming dogs everywhere.
It used to be an
In the
epidemic,
city.
yeah. Cats still are sadly an epidemic. There's no legislation on cats, and I think that's what makes it hard for us, is because it's illegal to let your dog run loose. It's illegal to not have a license on your dog. It's illegal to not have your dog vaccinated. And none of those things follow through with cats, which it's an agricultural state, which is part of the problem with that. So cats are still an epidemic. We know everybody calls about feral cats or cats born in their garage. But dogs, that has changed. And kudos to the city, kudos to the state police. I mean, they're the ones out there picking up the dogs. We have a humane police officer. He doesn't pick up stray dogs. We take them in from the public. But it's the city of Erie that are, making more regulations on that to getting the less stray animals out there, stray dogs.
Right. Well, Patty, we're going to get back to rescue. What type of animals, speaking to both of you, do you rescue, Ruth? And how does Patty become involved? I mean, you give somebody a stray or rescue an animal, and then they end up becoming a therapy dog?
Yeah, two quick stories on that.
I'd love to hear it.
We have actually rescued, we had a white boxer that we rescued from the Anna shelter. My daughter did. She was deaf. She was wandering the city of Erie streets, rescued her, and became our first and only to this day deaf therapy dog.
Oh, how cool.
I know.
That's
and
super cool.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, you and I chatted about it. Was so long ago, so you may not remember. But yeah, and she was a stray that was running around your city streets. Her name was Penny. She was fantastic. And I want to just chime in real quick on something, how much the people in our area, how much they love dogs and what you do.
Yeah.
Back when I worked in television, we had a story, and it was a tragic story of something, but we had a dog that needed some care, and we ran that story, and it was just a 30-second little story on the news. And when I came back up to the newsroom, I had probably 50 phone calls of people saying, I want to help. I think his name was Buster. And there was a lot of news and a lot of people that could have used help that day, but people were calling, I want to help this dog.
Yeah.
I saw this dog about, it's wrapped up. So and that was back in the early days.
Yeah.
And we would run those kind of stories and like, how can you help? And people just came out in droves and wanted to help.
Yeah.
So we're sending everybody to you.
That was awesome. Yeah, people are passionate, and thank God for our support.
Yes.
And I know you guys are everywhere. I mean, I hear about, I know you're to the courthouse. A lot of schools will say like, well, are you part of therapy dogs? I'm like, no, but and I didn't realize that you had one of ours.
There's a great connection.
I'm sure we have many that are Anna shelter dogs. I don't often ask as much anymore. Like, where'd you rescue your dog from? If you're a rescue, if you're
right.
But we have
Shouldn't
so
matter,
many. Yeah. But that was one that my daughter, who was working for the charity at the time with that
cool.
dog, she went into the Barber Center. All these places work with kids with special needs that couldn't hear.
Yeah,
we developed
can
a
relate.
program that
Yeah.
and totally related,
That
and the
is
connection
awesome.
there was amazing.
That is
so
awesome.
yeah, so
Very
you
cool.
you get your rescues, and we get so many of them from our volunteers that just go out in the community and do such great work and talk about the dog story and what they know and how they got the dog.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. We've had a couple cool stories with dogs going into police work, leaving the shelter, going into some. We have an FBI dog that actually lives in Washington, D.C., who works for the FBI, was a shelter dog. Yeah.
Cool.
So we've had a couple cool ones, but yeah, that's pretty neat.
I've got Ruth Thompson from the Anna Shelter, Patty Christensen from Therapy Dogs United on the show today. What a great connect with the two of you. I really don't have to say much. The two of you seem to have.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
Ruth, let's talk about some of the forms of neglect and abuse that animals face.
Yeah.
And then how do you address those?
Unfortunately, that's become a niche for us, which I hate it. I love it in the sense that I know the dogs are going to get the care that they need, dogs and cats, any animals. I mean, we just had a big rescue. It included farm animals. So I love that we are staffed to take care of that. We have 4 veterinarians that work for us. We have a behavior modification specialist that works for us. So we are equipped to handle those situations. I hate that those situations are out there. And I'm thankful, too, our reputation has really preceded us in being able to handle large-scale seizures, where we get calls from Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, and I will only work with like a state police or a municipality just to make my life easier. And but we'll get calls from all over, and they'll say, hey, if you guys didn't step up, we wouldn't know what to do, And last call we had, they said 3 dogs. We ended up leaving with 51. So yeah, they had dogs hidden all over the place. So it was awful, But the nice thing was, I showed up with our van, to pick up 3 dogs, and then within 3 hours, I had the horse trailers there. Like thank God, we have amassed all this of stuff to handle these large scale seizures. But yeah, what I thought was only going to take a couple hours ended up taking, 13 hours. I think we were there. But so yeah, it scares me the way we treat animals. I look at how we treat each other as human beings, and it's scary. I know you guys were probably all about the same age. I mean, I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised to treat people so poorly. So when I see how children or adults are treating animals, it makes me sick to my stomach. And then I look at how we're treating each other, and it just makes me sick to my stomach. So
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
How do you, we find it in therapy dog work that our volunteers get bummed out and really sad a lot of times with what they say. How do you guys manage that sadness? I often wonder.
I can't imagine.
So my brother is an oncologist in Florida, and he is big into compassion fatigue. And I remember him talking about how he sends his nurses And I was like, what is that? And he's like, Ruth, I think you'd benefit from one. So I actually went to a compassion fatigue seminar, and I was like the only animal. They're all like doctors and nurses. And I'm like, oh my God, I can so relate to this. And for me, like a lot of the NICU nurses are who I sat with because they're dealing with infant babies, and I'm dealing with animals that can't communicate. They can't communicate with these infant babies. And it's hard. It's so hard. Like I try to be like the fearless leader and keep things light and keep things happy, but I have a lot of my staff they get really sad, and I try to be so aware of that because I feel like I'm the only one stuck there, as bad as that sounds. I'm like, I'm the only one that has to be here. The rest of them can leave. So I try really hard to be aware of that and to always be mindful that they need a break, that we need to talk about it. We have a thing called tap out. Like if you can't handle something, you just tap out and go to the next person. And thankfully, we have a staff of 31 people. So we have a lot of people working for us. So you can always find somebody that'll tap out. And I joke, like the median age of the girls that work there are like in their, early 20s. They have all the energy in the world. That 13-hour rescue, like I was like the next day, like I was spent, but they're all like, woohoo, so a lot of pizza, a lot of, like
bribing you with good snacks.
We actually, at one rescue, the state troopers were laughing at me because I was like, is there a sheets? Like, I need to get these girls a shot or something. Like, and they're all over 21 with the troopers. I was like, this is going to be awesome. And there were a lot of dead animals on that scene. And that's what's hard. I mean, these people come and want to help and volunteer and work because they love animals. They don't want to see dead animals. They don't want, and our humane officer, he struggles, because he sees a lot of stuff, and he started because he loves animals, not wanting to see animals tortured or hung in the basement and, the awful things that happen to them. But I don't know. I believe animals go to heaven. So hopefully that's where they end up.
So do you have one officer?
We have one humane officer, and he covers a 1,200 square mile radius. He does Erie and Crawford counties. So
I think I just saw a story about a very little kitty.
That's actually a City of Erie police officer, which I thought that was so cool because
did he keep that little kitty?
Okay,
I saw that too.
That was on the CBS Morning News. Yeah. Like I told this guy was like, "What are you doing to me?" I'm like, and the reason I posted that was because we deal with so much sadness. And yes, the way he got the kitten was awful, and the kids are being held accountable. Their parents actually are being held accountable, but. Just, I was such a soft to watch him with that tiny kitten. He's like a big dude, he's got his gear on.
Yes.
And he would come every day. Once we got it out of ISO, and he was like, is it okay if I go back there? And I was like, yeah. And so I was like, I have to post this. I have to have people see the good side. So.
You have to show the good stuff.
I can't imagine pulling up and rescuing 50 plus animals. Some of them aren't.
Yeah.
And we've seen on television some of these animals that you have sheltered. And what medical care and treatments do they need normally? I mean, what do you do? Do you seclude them first?
Yeah.
How does all that work?
Most of them will have to go into isolation just because of parasites, disease control, things like that. We are very well equipped, thank God. We have a barn. We have triage areas. The veterinarians being on staff was a huge game changer for me. I have a pharmacy license. I have x-ray machines, sonograms, things that I would have had to go out and pay for before. Now we have all of that belongs to us. So that makes things a lot easier. It's a well-oiled machine, and I'm proud of it. It's not all me. It took a whole team of people to make this happen. But I do worry someday when I'm not able to do it. Like, who is going to be crazy enough to do this? You know what I mean? Like, who's going to give up their life?
Where is a Ruth out there?
Who's going to give up their life to do this?
Right, Patty?
Right. Yeah.
What challenges do you face right now? Animal shelter.
I'm like a one day, one animal at a time kind of girl. Like I just try to focus on, who's in house, who needs me right then and there, and not look too far ahead. So daily challenges is just, getting the animals out of there. We're very high volume, so we need to keep things moving at the shelter. And that makes it hard. And that makes it hard on some adopters too. So, trying to just keep things moving. You guys probably back in the day, there was like that thing on TV where the guy would spin the plates and, and they did like run over here and spin this plate and all let the plates fall. I feel like that's me like constantly. I'm just like spinning the plates to make sure everybody's moving in the right direction.
So once you get these animals to where they can be adopted, what are the criteria that you use?
So we have 4 simple criteria when people come to adopt. If you don't own your own home, you have to have permission from your landlord. You have to have some source of income because the adoption fee is very nominal compared to what it costs to have an animal. Everybody in the family has to be on board with adopting the pet. and your other animals have to be fully vetted, or what we consider fully vetted. And I think Patty and I had an experience not that long ago where it's not like a blanket approval. Some people go like, well, I was already approved for this dog. I'm like, yeah, but not for this dog. Like I try to do, in my opinion, and it pisses people off sometimes. I don't know if I can say that word.
You can say that
It
word.
upsets people sometimes because, you know, maybe they fall in love with something that I just like. For example, we had a Chihuahua just the other day. He's 13 years old. He pretty much hates everybody. And a family came in, they wanted to adopt him. They had a couple little kids. They had another large dog, and the moms always wanted a Chihuahua. And I was like, look, I get it. And I have a Chihuahua. He's like my son. I'm like, but Bruno just needs a place to chill, and your kids are great, and your other dog is great. And they ended up adopting another dog because they were cool. Like at first they were kind of like, they didn't like me for it. But then I was like, let's just look at I get it. They wanted a small dog. But Bruno needed a quiet, and he just got adopted today, thank God, to a quiet, chill house with one other little old Chihuahua so he can just live out the rest of his life as a little old Chihuahua. So I think that's probably the hardest thing is that people get mad at me sometimes. But at the end of the day, I have to just go like, okay, I just have to look at what's best for that animal. Because I know this sounds terrible, but I believe like they're all mine until I feel like, you know, I can put them somewhere where I can sleep at night. And I've made people mad. I mean, and it's like, but I have to just keep going back to like, okay, but I know this animal now and I want to do what's best for him or her. And I've made some poor choices. I mean, I have people call and go like, "Oh my God, you adopted this dog out to me, and it's an ass. It's a bad dog."
Well, you never want a dog returned.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
you never want a dog to come back to you.
Dog, cat, guinea
rehomed.
pig, whatever. Like retention is so important to me because you don't realize how well, maybe you guys do, how stressful that is on that animal. Like, you know, a lot of times ours are on the street, or somebody died and they bring in their pet, or their family brings in the pet, or however it ended up to us. Like all that transition is so hard for an animal. And even if the animal's like looking like it's happy, it's so stressed out. So I use this example, and it irritates people, but like I don't like to fly. So if I'm going to fly to see my niece in LA, I'm going to fly from Cleveland to LA. I don't want to go from Erie to Charlotte to Texas to LA. Like I want to go one up, one down. And I feel like that's with the animals. Like I want them, I'm a very temporary home, hopefully, for them. And then the next home is where I want them to just, okay, this is it. I'm going to stay here now. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I try to base it. But it's not easy, but it is.
Does that premise work with, you guys don't foster, right? So
the
is
only
that one
time,
of the reasons why?
Yeah, the only time we
Does that make
foster,
sense?
exactly. And the only time we foster is if an animal's not eligible for adoption. Like right now at this moment, I have 41 puppies in foster. 2 moms came in pregnant, had their puppies at the shelter. That is the last place I want an infant. So I get them into a foster home. And thank God, knock on wood, a lot of times the foster parent will be like, well, I really love the mom. I'm like, awesome, let her stay here, you know. And then the puppies can be rehomed. Or Ella just had her leg amputated. Again, I don't want to rehab in jail. It's dog jail, dog, cat jail. It's jail. It is what it is. I call it like it is. So Ella will go to a foster home once she's released from West. Again, my hope is that, and I always say to the foster, like, I want you to be a foster fail. You know, if it works out and you want to keep it, awesome. But that's the main reason I don't foster. And I'm not knocking any of the foster groups. I thank God for them. But at the same time, I just took home a 6-month-old puppy. And I tell people 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, give them a chance to settle in. Some dogs will settle in instantly. Some dogs take time. And Esther has now been with me for 2 months. And I'll tell you what, in the first 2 weeks, I was like, I want to take this dog back. Like I was like preaching to myself. I'm like,
I have heard that
was like,
from,
let
yes.
her settle in, you know. And now it's been 2 months, and Esther gets it, and she gets me, and I get her, and she's amazing. But yeah, that's where that one up, one down. I like them to be home.
Yeah, I've had several friends that have adopted, you know, and then a week or two goes by, and it's not. What?
That honeymoon phase is over. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're starting, and I remember the first time Esther, and actually I adopted my own human child, and it's funny because she was 5, and I kind of like, this sounds terrible, and she's super cool. She's 29 now, so she gets it. But I mean, I remember when I first adopted her, and I had to go to court appointment, and they were like, well, you know, and I remember the first time Rosie ever got like sassy with me, and I was like, oh, she's felt comfortable. You know what I mean? She felt comfortable enough to challenge me, where the first couple months she was an angel. And so I watched that with the dog. You know, the first first couple of weeks, the dog was not testing me. Now she's like pulling stuff out of the garbage, grabbing my shoes.
I'm an ankle biter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're being themselves. They finally settled in.
I'm home.
Yeah.
So how do you fund your operations, Ruth?
So
tell us what the role of donations are.
Donations are huge. I decided a long time ago, and it's not that I don't play well with others. I really pride myself on getting along with as many people as I can. I bartended all through college. Like, I love people. But what I didn't like is any of the national organizations that would come and say, like, hey, why don't you join us? It wasn't me, and it didn't feel like me. And I thought, I just want to be true to myself, true to my mission and what I felt I wanted to do. And we have a board of directors who are fantastic and very respectful. I would say our attorney and our accountant are the two that challenge me the most. Well, they'll be like, no, you're not going to do that. I'm like, oh, okay. But we are primarily through donations. Our clinics, we're open to the public. So all the funds from the clinics help to run the shelter. The adoption fees, like, we have what we consider donations through shelter services. So adoption fee, we don't charge for people to bring animals to us. So some people will want to make a donation. Those are so nominal, and you understand that. When your budget is like really big and like you get a little time, the girls know if we have no adoptions that day, a couple of them will say like, "Oh my God, how are you going to pay the bills?" I'm like, "Don't worry, we have other ways. Money's coming in, thank God." But yeah, if it wasn't for the support of our community, like I wouldn't be able to do it. There's just no way.
How did it go for Erie Gibbs?
Really, really good. I don't ever, since the onset, well, two things, and I think you can appreciate this, Patty. I do not like the idea of pitting nonprofits against each other.
It's like the Hunger Games out there. It's
I do not like
totally agree.
I don't like the Erie's Choice. You're the best nonprofit. No, we are all so important and so valuable. I do not think that should be a category. Thankfully, and it's very nice, we've won a lot, and that's great. And I feel like we've earned that respect from people. But I hate that. Oh, are you on the leaderboard? I don't know. If I make $10, that's $10 we didn't have yesterday. So I just thank God, and I never look. I refuse to look at it. I have a couple of my staff. I joke that they're being petty, but they're watch all day long, and they're like, "Do you want to hear what we're doing?" I'm like, "Nope, don't tell me." Because secondly, I don't want to bank on that money. Now with Erie Gives, we do get the money, but there are times when I'm like, I don't want to think about it, because if I think we're getting a lot of money and it doesn't show up, then I'm disappointed. So I don't want to think about it. It is what it is, one day at a time.
Patty, how do you feel with the give? And
same thing. I mean, Erie Gives us a great gift that they give to Erie, but there are 514
crazy
charities in Erie,
number.
and we're all out there. I appreciate the ones that definitely donate to us 100% that would not have otherwise donated to us. But the places that are pay your dues through Erie Gives, and
I've
their
seen
numbers
that.
are.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. And I just am I didn't either until I just found out about it. So I'm everything that comes into us is an organic donation that we didn't ask for it in another way. We don't suggest that you pay your membership dues or
I saw
anything
that. Somebody
like that.
was like, "Oh, I pay my tuition on Erie Gives Day." And I was like, "Huh?"
I know.
How
How's
do you
that a
do that?
thing?
Right.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I didn't either. So
you and I are so focused on what we do. We're like, what is going on
I know.
out there?
It's wait, okay.
Yeah, what is happening
I
out
know.
there?
Yeah, so we hear the little bits and pieces about that.
I've got Ruth Thompson from the Anna Shelter, Patty Christensen from Therapy Dogs United on the show this morning. Patty, let's talk and try to understand the process for selecting and training therapy dogs.
Yeah. So the essence of what we do is our dogs are certified and they stay with their handler. So it could be Nat the Hat with your Chihuahua, and then we're going to certify your dog, and you're going to go out into the community and represent Therapy Dogs United with a program that we have. So there is a science behind it. We created our evaluation specific to our charity, to what we felt should be in it, but we do subscribe to a national standard for half of it. So anybody who wants their dog evaluated to pass as a therapy dog, you have to pass a canine good citizen test, which Ruth for sure knows about. And then the second half is the actual therapy dog evaluation that makes sure your dog is good around the sights and sounds and major distractions of a visit. So once we have dog trainers here in Erie that are able to proctor our exam for us. If you want a class, you can go to one of them and they'll give our exams at the end. Or if you think your dog's ready, you can just reach out to us and we have an evaluator who will just evaluate your dog for you. Once your dog passes, we bring you in and then we find a program for you to volunteer with. So it can be, you name it, we probably have a program for it. We haven't had the luxury But Ruth and I could change that of getting like a rescue dog and placing it as, a service dog, support dog in some fashion for somebody. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. We have to have a puppy raiser. We have to have a dog raiser. We have to make sure we have to have somebody to place it with that has the wherewithal to keep the dog in their home once they have it, because the money ends after that. I give you the dog. They're like, how do I feed it? How do I get my vet care? So you have to make sure that we fundraise enough to support all of that. So we haven't done that in a while.
That's definitely something we should look at between I can grant, right? I mean, you and I could,
sure.
We could probably do this privately, but I mean, who
we
cares?
might as well do it
If
right
Joe
now.
Public wants to hear, maybe they want to support that.
Right.
I would love that idea. We did that with the police department with a canine dog. I think that would be fantastic. And I do have people ask about that, but you're right. Like the funding becomes an issue, but we could hit up some politicians. We could definitely make this a thing.
Because we have to
look at this might spearhead something cool.
Like we have to take care of them after that, because there is hard expenses. And then we also have to think that if I'm say I need the dog because of emotional support or depression or something, what about the days that I myself am struggling?
Yeah.
Who is taking care of my dog? So it's really hard to place our dogs with the right person.
Yeah.
Because if you can't function on a day or a week or something, who does? What is our backup system? What is our support system? So we have a lot of challenges. A lot of places will just be like, we're going to certify a service dog and give it to a veteran because, and that's fabulous and that's needed and I get it. But we want to be there for you when it is difficult on those days. And that's where you really have to look further down the road and say, what support can we give? Can you give financially? All of those things.
Yeah.
And how do I help you when you can't help yourself?
Yeah, I love that idea. I mean, I can already think of like things that we could provide and then more things that are your specialty that you guys can provide. But
we certainly have the need. And like you said, we get the phone calls and we have the need and we've got the running list. But I always look at it and think, who is this person's support system or how do we get there to help them? I mean, there's just so much more to it. Everybody says, a lot of people, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people say we're going to place this dog, but are they thinking down the road? I'm a thinker down the road and I'm sure you are, Ruth.
You have to be.
You have to be.
Yeah. These are lives that, we're dealing with. And the same thing, like when an animal leaves me, we call them alumni, but like I worry, I lose sleep. I'm sure you do too.
Absolutely.
I lose sleep over these animals.
If I placed it with somebody and I didn't think I could be there to help them if they were struggling, or I knew that I was putting a financial burden on them, I wouldn't be able to sleep either.
Exactly. And that's where I'm so blessed with the veterinarians. That's what I'm just thinking, like I could provide medical care, like I could provide, you know what I mean?
Fantastic.
So things like that we could team. And that's what we had signed up with. We're still a chapter for Pets for Vets, which is the national program. And then again, it was one of those things where I was like, well, I have some ideas, like kind of like how to make it not better, because it's a great program, but how to make it more where I'm comfortable. Because exactly like you said, they're like, okay, see you later.
They
and
probably
I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I'm attached to this dog. I'm attached to this cat. We did a rabbit through Pets for Vets. Like I want that animal to be okay. I've made a commitment to that animal for the rest of its life. And I need to know it's okay. And so we stared with Ryan Bizzaro, one of our local, who is a true animal lover.
Yes, he
Ryan
is.
loves animals.
Yeah.
And we became good friends through it because he gets it. Like he gets where I'm just like, okay, like, yeah, the adoption fee is the easiest fee to spend.
Right.
I mean, we have cats right now. Our adoption fees are $10. I mean, come on. Easy to spend $10, but are you going to spend $400 when it needs a tooth pulled? Like, you know what I mean? So I want to make sure.
It is expensive now,
and cats
ladies.
live 20 years.
Absolutely.
Like, are you ready for that commitment in your life? And dogs, we hope live 15 whatever years, depending on their size.
Exactly.
Are you ready for the commitment?
Yeah. And so I think that's important. But I love that idea. And I think, I know, I've been through some difficult things in my life. And if I didn't have my animals, I have horses, I have dogs. I'm allergic to cats. So I can't, it's contact allergy though. Thank God. I can be in a room with them, but as soon as they touch my face, it's over. But I can't imagine a day without my dog. Like I come home and I can't wait to get to them. I have 4 giant dogs that sleep in my bed. It's embarrassing, but I can't wait to
I have
get
little
with
dogs,
them.
so I'm a little dog girl.
Well, I have a Chihuahua and I have a Poodle. And my Chihuahua is like my son. I don't even consider him a dog. Like he is like a part of me. And I can't imagine, people that don't like dogs, did a podcast not long ago. I know. I did a podcast not long ago with a girl in Philadelphia and it was over the phone. And she said, would you ever date a guy that didn't own a dog? And I was like, knee jerk. I was like, hell no. I'm like, what are you talking about? When I was going through my divorce, I had 11 dogs. And I remember that's bad. Don't even know. I just said it out loud. But I remember standing on my porch. I had 22 acres, a big farm area, and I remember looking at all the dogs in my yard, and I thought, I am completely undateable. Like, what is one man
and my 11
is
dogs?
going to be like, oh, you have 11 dogs? So I'm down to, I can say down, I have 6 right now.
It's much more manageable.
Yeah,
much more
it's
manageable.
okay.
Ruth.
So
It
big
is.
dogs, little dogs, but it truly is a commitment
Oh,
when
absolutely.
somebody
Truly.
takes an animal.
Yeah.
And you think about it now, it's expensive.
Yeah.
When-
and
when-
now a lot of vets, it's hard to get into a veterinarian if you don't have an established relationship. Our e-clinic is great, but they're only open a few days a week. So if you have an emergency the day they're not open and you don't have a veterinarian, you're going to
You're
Pittsburgh,
driving to Pittsburgh.
Cleveland,
you're
Buffalo.
driving.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, research shows that interacting with therapy animals reduces stress, lowers your blood pressure. Alleviates symptoms of PTSD, depression. Their mere presence can bring comfort and solace in times of crisis.
And we
right,
we
Pat?
run a lot of studies. That's a lot of the essence of what we do. We're collecting that empirical data to see how we've impacted people's lives. And, even looking at a dog can make you feel better. Like if you don't even have to necessarily touch it. And we've got so many great stories of just individuals who's, we're at a nursing home and somebody's sad and they're looking down and a dog comes in and, it can stay with them for up to 45 minutes where
That's
they wake up
awesome.
and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better that dog came in to see me. And if you're not a dog person, you don't get it. Cause I have had donors and people say, I don't get it. It's just a dog, but is it just a dog? Like,
Right.
Imagine like Ruth and I are dog people our whole life. And I get sent to a location where I can't have a dog. Right. I'm going to be so sad. I'm going to be like, my children cannot put me there. Like it's got to be
Can you
around the
imagine?
dogs. Yeah. But so many studies, so many sciences, so much that we're doing now with workplace wellness, where we're going into all of these employers in Erie just to give people a moment to decompress.
I love that.
Again, the
I love
college
that you're doing
campuses
that.
for all the kids that
Yep.
had
They had to leave their dog
I had to
behind.
leave my dog
Yeah.
behind. So we'll go to Penn West University and there'll be 230 kids to our 25 dogs that show up and they're like, this is the greatest
That's
day.
so
Like
cool.
I miss them so much. So
I love that you guys go to the courthouse. I think
the
that's
courthouse.
such
so
a great
that,
thing.
Thank you
Let's
to
talk about the
yeah.
courthouse.
So, yes, thank you to Judge John Trusilla, who reached out to me in 2015 for that program and said, look, I've got kids that have to face their accuser on
I
the stand.
love that.
Or I have kids who are having to be in court for something that they've done. I have happy days, which there are few and far between where a child's being adopted, but I want the comfort of those dogs on the stand. So a lot of what we do is just distract them. We'll be in the courtroom for the process, but a lot of times we go on the stand for them. And when they're petting the dog
Yeah.
and interacting with the dog, they'll answer questions because they're not looking out into the courtroom at something
seeing
that
these-
what has
Yeah.
happened
Yes.
to them, and they'll talk more freely. And we use that a lot in therapy where they'll lift up a dog's ear and tell their secret, and that opens the dialogue
I love
that
that.
we're trying.
I got goosebumps.
I know
love
that
it.
we're trying
I
to
love it.
get them to talk about what happened. Sometimes it's a doll, sometimes it's a game. A lot of times it's a dog. You'll keep my secrets and you won't tell. Once I say it once out loud, I can say it out loud again to somebody else. And get,
So
you know,
cool.
Ah,
so
Patty,
courthouse is a phenomenal. We're in the courthouse all the time. We visit 5 different judges in the courthouse. Anything that they need, if it's a custody hearing, if it's a court hearing, if it's an adoption, if it's a child that has to face their accuser on the stand, our dogs and our volunteers are there. And when we go into the judge's chambers, sometimes we have to just kind of hand off the dog with Judge Trusilla, which isn't something we normally do. But if he needs the dog there and he needs the dog there without us being able to hear, we all sign an agreement that we're not going to talk about what we heard, but occasionally we will hand off the dog, and I kind of break the rules on that, but I feel like we have to,
You have
because
to,
if
yeah.
it's needed,
Right.
then it's needed. But it's a phenomenal program, and we're just so blessed that he was able. We've mirrored our program throughout the U.S. We've had many courthouses contact us and say, "How'd you do it?" And I said, "Well,
That's
it's all
awesome.
started with an amazing judge who said we could and opened the door for us, and then
And Judge Drusilla's the
he's
best.
the guy. He's the
That's
best.
so cool.
He
really
is.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the other places, Patty, that you go to? with
Anywhere
therapy
you
dogs?
ask us, we will come. Other than I don't love to be around like infant children. Sometimes we get like daycares that have kids, super, super small. But if you ask us, we will come. I mean, I try to not say no to anything if we feel that it's a safe environment for us to make a visit. I want to just quickly tell you a quick little story. We had done a reading program years and years and years ago where we matched, we brought in therapy dogs and the kids read to our dogs. And then they read to their peers. And their reading levels, actually, it was studied by a bunch of professors at Indiana University. Their reading levels went up from like 28 because the peers had the non-judgmental ears, right? You're not going to correct me. You're not going to tell me what I'm saying wrong. You're not going to tell me if I mispronounce a word. I just feel relaxed. And you could easily do that. Have a kid sit outside of a
we
shelter.
do the cat rooms. Yep, we do
Your
the
cat rooms. So we did that study and it was published. I got an email a couple of months ago from the Ukraine, from a school and a nonprofit in Ukraine that found our study and says, how can we do this? We didn't know it was a thing. We didn't realize, and we started searching, and like it is a thing. Of course, the United States has it, and we want this in the Ukraine, and they're in Kyiv, and she wants to spread it throughout the Ukraine for, trauma. So many more things than just the reading. Yes. So they don't have per se therapy dogs, but they have a lot of shelter dogs. Ruth, this is me and you again, that are off the street, and they're having them match up because so many people abandon their dogs. Right. So whereas they don't have the wherewithal to get them certified as true therapy dogs right now, they're getting shelter dogs, and the hope is that the child connects with it and they bring it home to their family. But we're starting this interaction with them. We've got Zoom calls with them where we're trying to help them get this, and they eventually want to move it into Poland, where there's many, of the refugees that are up there. And it all started with a little study that we did here in Erie, Pennsylvania, they found online. I know, Erie, Pennsylvania. And now, it's beautiful. Just, I'm like, where can this go? And I almost need like a shelter expert for that because, I can't help them certify the dogs right now. They're just not at that point, but they're so much trauma and so many different things, so many different experts here in Erie that I'm relying on to help me build this for them. Yeah, so thank you.
And actually, with more of a connection here, so one of our she's a technician because she's a veterinarian from Kyiv. Okay. And she came here with her sisters. Her one sister was an attorney in the Ukraine. Her other sister had a spa, had a esthetician. And then Ira was a veterinarian, and the three women all left with their children. Their husbands stayed. And Ira came to work for us. She's a vet tech because she can't be licensed here in PA because of the, we were hooking her up in Harrisburg to get her. She's taking classes at Gannon. She's fantastic. But she would be a really good resource for us too. And she's got the language thing going down.
One of the first things they said is, will you come visit us? And I was very nervous. I'm like, I don't.
They wanted you to come visit?
Yeah. Oh. And I'm like, well, we're not there. You can come here. Yeah, I'll bring you over. They're like, we can find a safe place. But so much work to do with that. So cool. Something very cool that Erie always has those moments, right? Where it's like, I feel like we have
little Erie
things.
Thing. And we're like, wow, look at us.
Yeah. Look at us go. Right.
That's right. What are some of the qualifications or requirements for a dog to become?
So fortunately, we're not breed specific. And another reason why we went off on our own and did this grassroots thing is because there were many charities that were breed specific. So any breed, we love our bully breeds. We love the work that they do. We don't, anything that's not like a wolf type of hybrid. So you have to, again, be a calm dog. You have to be obedient. You have to know basic obedience. You have to like to be around people. So just because you're a calm dog that's obedient, you have to want to be touched. You have to want to be around people because you do sit for long hours. Say we're doing a reading program and a child's reading to you. You do just kind of have to sit there for a long time. But there is that science behind it with those 2 evaluations that you have to pass. For our volunteers, we need people that have the time to do it, that are flexible, that can go into a lot of different changing environments where not every day is a happy day. When we're at UPMC Hammett, it's not always a happy day. And we have hospital teams for that. When we're in the courthouse, it's not always a happy day. And we are working on a workplace wellness program right now for our team, like I had asked you about the burnout, and attending a funeral when we're asked to do that, and then dealing with their own sadness of that, and how do we manage all of that? So we're trying to help the helpers right now.
I'll pass on that compassion fatigue. And if I bring that lady, I brought her to Erie a couple years ago. If I bring her again, I'll have you bring some of your staff and volunteers because she was so good and she really related to what we did or what we do. So I definitely will remember to invite you.
Because we just... not the animals, but we see so much with the humans, and it challenges our mortality sometimes when you go into the nursing home and think, well, that was my mom, that was my dad, or that's going to be me, and the hospice workers and all of that. So we're just regular people that are going into all of these different lanes and trying to manage everything that we see. And we, as Therapy Dogs United, have to do a better job as a charity, getting them the resources for when they're struggling on on their own.
Right. How about a memorable or impactful moment, Patty, you've had?
One that I've personally had.
Yes.
So my first dog, when I founded the charity, failed. He did not like to be touched. So
Failed.
I had technically founded a charity that I could not belong to. Good old Rocco, he didn't pass. So I went for like a long time. People would make fun of me like, so you founded this charity, but you don't belong to it. I currently don't. I have one dog that volunteers with me, but my other dog will never be a therapy dog. But back when I had my Newfoundland, and I was at a nursing home years ago. I had walked in, and we were in the dementia unit, and I'm chit-chatting with Bob, and we're having a good old time. And I talked to him for like 45 minutes, and I'm like, and I have Bella, and she was a Landseer, so she was a black and white Newfoundland, not your traditional looking dog. And he's like, "Hi, my name's Bob," and he was in this great shirt. And we just had this wonderful chat, and I'm like, oh, and then he just walked away and went and sat down, and I'm like, well, that was that. And the staff came over and said, oh my gosh, goosebumps. He has not spoken a word in 2 years.
Wow.
For real. I am calling his daughter. Something either about me or about Bella, my Newfoundland, brought him back. And in fact, he was so impeccable in our conversation that I thought he was like staff. Like I had no idea that Bob had lived there. And literally we're like, what? You know, I went back and visited Bob a number of times and never nothing. But for 45 seconds, whatever it was, myself or Bella, I brought him back. And that was one of my best stories.
Wow.
That I just was like, oh my gosh. And they called, his kids, and, he never looked the same. Anytime I saw him again, he was always real sullen and just kind of sitting there, but whatever reason, he gravitated to us on that day. And my volunteers, we
brought
have
him
just
life.
I know we have so. I'm actually going to work on a book or something because we just have.
I
I say that all the time.
Stories.
Like nobody would believe the stories
would-
that I
right.
have. I'm like, I need to write this down.
We got to write
Yes.
this down.
My niece's husband is a big time Hollywood guy, and I always, whenever they come to Erie, I'm like, Dan, you need to hear the like. You got to.
Well,
write.
I'm like my Ukraine thing. I'm like 60 minutes. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, here
There
we
you
go.
go. There you go.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going big. I'm
You're like, I can
okay.
see this.
Yes,
I can see this
But
happening.
the stories that we have, and yours are tragic, and mine are, more, but the things that you see, and we have to write them down.
You
And
should
we
someday
really-
like memoirs.
Right.
But I love.
I like it. I like it, girls.
One
I
of
think
the
this is-
things you said that I love and that really resonates, and I think that if more of us can say things like this, somebody will get very disappointed because their dog, they bring it in for a meet and greet. They want another dog, and their dog's like, no, like it's not happening. And I tell them, I'm like, do you like, and why doesn't my dog like, I'm like, do you like everybody? Like, we can't expect these animals. And that's the other thing too, like when you said about your dog has to like being touched to be a therapy dog. I mean, the nature of a child is to wrap their arms around the dog's neck. So if you took a dog to the courthouse and the little girl wrapped her arms around the dog's neck and the dog snaps at her face, like what happened to you? You can't have that. And that's what I try to tell people. It's not your kid's fault. That's the nature of a child. I just took my dog the other day for a walk. And what's this little boy do? That new puppy that I was telling you about. First thing he does is wraps his, and the parents didn't say anything. And I like literally just stopped for a second. So I'm like, I don't really know this dog. Like, is she going to snap at his face? Like so I was very calm and I got them away. But I mean, so to know that these are, and I say this all the time, we put clothes on them. We give them Instagram accounts. We try to make them human. They're not. They're animals. They're instinct driven. They're behavior driven. You've got to just be so careful and, just so smart about it.
And direct eye contact is another thing that dogs don't love being stared at. And when you're making a visit, like we have to test them for all of these kind of things that could potentially be a trigger, and then educate our volunteers that
watch body language.
And I'm not going to lie. I have a couple of dogs that are with our charity right now that don't love other dogs necessarily, but they love people. And people say, well, I could never be a therapy dog. And I say, you don't have to like other dogs.
Exactly.
That's not your job. Your job
Right.
is to be 2 feet away from everybody else and engage with the people. I mean, I'm not going to send you out on a visit where there's 20 dogs or 5 other dogs. But
You're
that's
managing the situation.
You're managing the situation, and it doesn't mean that your dog can't do the work just because they don't love you. So we just, there's so much to it that you have to think of and know ahead of time.
What are some of the future goals and initiatives that
She's
you
going
have
to
for
Ukraine. What are you talking about? We already know where she's going. She's going to be on 60 Minutes and with this
Ruth
mission.
and I are heading over. She's going to do the rescue part.
I'm kind of a chicken.
I know. If you just saw
She
my
has to
face
have-
Remember
when
that
she
Excuse
fear
said
of
me.
that.
flying?
Wait, Patty. She has to have a direct flight
Yeah,
from
it's
Erie
got to
to
be a
Ukraine.
one up, one down.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's all we're going to
remember
do.
There has to be one
We'll
flight.
have to drive to like New York City.
Oh, you
Well,
ladies
you know
are
what?
awesome.
The main thing we are working on is that wellness for our own volunteers. That is something that I'm really really pushing for
I'm
to
gonna
make
hook you.
sure.
I'm gonna hook you up with this lady. She's based out of Buffalo, and she wasn't that expensive to bring here.
great.
And I brought her here for my staff, and she was really, really good.
Okay.
She does compassion fatigue and gave them some really practical exercises and things that we use every day. So
Okay,
I'll get you
wonderful.
that information.
Yeah, and we're just working on, Erie, growing our volunteer base here because there's such a need that we want to make sure that we always get our dogs to go out. A lot of our volunteers work and don't have, all time. They can't be somewhere at 9 a.m. A lot of them are on private teams like hospital teams, cancer center teams, things of that nature. Growing our footprint always here in Erie because you lose dogs after, a dog retires out at age 9, for example, that dog owner doesn't always get another dog. So we lose those great volunteers. We always have to look for new ones. And then we're focusing on growing throughout the United States. So we're in 29 different states right now.
It's amazing.
And Canada.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, well, we're not like saturated in the state, but like we have
Yeah, you
like
have a
dog trainers.
footprint.
We've got a
Yeah.
footprint like, Lincoln, Nebraska.
You're
where it was-
international.
We're international. I
That's
cannot forget
awesome.
the fact that we are in the Yukon, yes, of Canada. So that's big, but I really want to take care of our team. I really want to focus on that.
That's
so I
awesome.
love that information.
Yeah.
And
Right.
just make sure that, everybody has a positive experience when they're visiting with us. We never want anybody to leave and be, disappointed. We just want to make sure that we have a great experience.
Well, Patty, I learned a great deal
Yeah, well, thank
about Therapy Dogs United while my band played
yes, you
for the Bark celebration.
She always was there. I know.
I know. And, I won't be there this year, but the date is Friday, November 8th.
Yes.
We still have tickets available.
We do, yeah. In fact, we just put them online available, and they're on our website, therapydogsunited.org. You can get tickets. And
What a celebration it is,
you.
too. You reveal your therapy dog of the year,
Yes.
which is super cool.
Yeah, we have a calendar.
The calendar is
It's
amazing.
hysterical. Thank you.
And I remember last year you got really emotional. I cannot remember.
We had a volunteer who had lost her son during pregnancy, and when she was sitting in the emergency room at the hospital, and I'm going to cry, a therapy dog had come to visit her. So she was on the other side of it, somebody who
That's
works
right.
for the charity, and then was visited during the worst day of her life, visited by a therapy dog to comfort her. So she shared that story with us.
I know. That was very, very touching last year. And so this year it's November 8th. It's at the Concourse of Union Station, 6 to 9:30. Fabulous.
you.
The auction is incredible.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks
I
to
have
so
won
many
some
donors.
super really cool things.
Oh, cool.
And one of them was a wiener dog. I'll never forget it. It was like a wooden wiener dog.
Oh, I remember that.
And,
yes.
and Mojo, my former rocket
Yes.
partner for many, many years, had a wiener dog for years.
Oh my gosh.
So I went over for a Christmas celebration and had to take him.
for sure.
The wiener dog was so
Oh,
cute.
for sure.
So it is a great celebration. So folks, if you've got November 8th, it's a Friday
we'll take
evening. Definitely so much going on. How about you, Ruth? Anything coming up?
Oh, I don't know. No, I'm like a one day at a time.
I
There's a
know.
lot of, which actually, thank God, I call Becky my handler at the shelter. She's the shelter manager, and she'll be like, "Hey, this is where you're supposed to be today." I'm like, "Okay, I'm up," and like this is as dressed up as I get. So thank God this isn't like TV. But I know we have Dogtoberfest. It's actually the 10th annual one. And one of the things that I am not knocking anybody that has the time for this, but I don't have time to do a fun. I mean, I try, but to be able to put on an event, we're different. Like, I'm the HR person, the PR person, the marketing person. I do the website, I do the Facebook. So I don't, so when somebody says Erie Brewing, Jen at Erie Brewing has been so faithful to us, and she'll say, "Hey, can we put on an event for you?" I'm like, "Yes, just tell me what,
Just tell me when to show up.
be there."
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, "Do you want dogs there or just us? What do you need?" And then I'll promote the heck out of it on all of our socials. But yeah, so there's always something going on, and we love visitors, so anybody can stop by.
But you know what, Ruth? I also love the fact that, when you're doing a rescue and you'll ask the public on television that you could use some food or
Yeah.
litter.
They're
or-
loyal to you.
They
I
are
mean,
really
they
so blessed.
Our Erie
We are
community.
so blessed. It's crazy. And like you said, to all of a sudden when you did that story for us with the, and I try to I'm a huge treat others the way you want to be treated. And I always try to, my dad used to say, flip the situation around, be respectful, be that, And so I try, like, I couldn't, if somebody said to me, like, I need a $10,000 this, I can't get it for you. But if you're like, can you get me some bleach? I'm like, yeah, I'll pick up a couple bottles next time. You know what I mean? So
That's
like
right.
things like that. So, and what people don't realize is the impact that makes. If 10, I used to joke with my friends, I'm like, if 10, I have 3 friends, but like, no, legit, like Facebook will tell you I have 5,000. I don't, I have 3, but I used to say back in the day when I started the shelter, like if everybody I knew would buy me a bottle of bleach, I wouldn't have to buy bleach for the month. You know what I mean? So simple things like that. So when we had that big Chihuahua intake, and Chihuahuas, I mean, little dogs fly out of the shelter. So I don't have a surplus of little dog food. And I put it out there and I was like, hey, if anybody wants it. And you would not, I mean, we had small breed dog food coming from all across people, Chewy and Amazon were just sending us small breed dog food. And I was like, oh, hallelujah. So. Yeah.
Well, animal rescue and therapy are 2 sides of the same coin, and that's why I had you both on today.
Love it.
Thank you.
And I love
That
the
was
fact
great,
that
yeah.
yes, and
Awesome
you know,
connection.
you're both grounded in compassion and care, and
Thank you.
You know, they remind us of the strength found in the bond between humans and animals, and a great bond you two shared today. By the way, when we save them, we often end up saving us. It's an exchange of love, trust, and healing. It enriches all our lives. The 2 of you have done this. So let's continue to champion the cause of animal rescue and therapy. Let's give these wonderful creatures the love and care that they really deserve. And in return, we might just find that they have an infinite amount of love to give us back, right? So I've got Ruth Thompson from the Anna Shelter, Patty Christensen from Therapy Dogs United. Thank you both for coming on the show. You have great vision, great compassion, and you just care. And that's important.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this
So,
was amazing.
I'm
Thank you.
going to leave you with this one. Animals have come to mean so much in our lives. We live in a fragmented and discontented and disconnected culture. You know, the politics are ugly, religion struggles, technology is stressful, the economy is unfortunate right now. That's what's one thing that we have in our lives that we can depend on, and that's our animals.
Yeah.
Who love us unconditionally every day, very faithfully. Right?
Amen. Yes, love it.
Thank you for coming on the show. Have a great week, everyone, in the 814.
You've been tuned in to Breakfast with Nat the Hat in the 814, sponsored by Erie Insurance on 88.5 and 102.7 LECOM Radio.